Hey y'all, it's your co-host Yogi Rich, introducing episode 10 of OneAnswer Yoga, What is Money? This conversation is all about finances and how yogic philosophy can help aid one in attracting more resources into your life. We talk about a wide variety of tips and tools on how to think about money, um, and how faith plays a significant role in our resources. Also, how we act in the world and how we give to others and how we treat ourselves is all important to financial health. So, without further ado, please enjoy episode 10 of One Answer Yoga. One love. Peace.
All right. Hi.
Hey there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Um, Thanks for your flexibility. I'm on the
Yeah.
road traveling, so we were supposed to record earlier this week, and our internet wasn't so great. So you'll see I'm in a lovely hotel room in Bay City, Michigan. Shout out to Bay City, everybody.
Well, yeah, I don't know anything about Bay City. What brings you over there?
I knew nothing about Bay City either, but it's actually quite an interesting town. It's on Lake Huron in Michigan, and we're here because Dee is officiating Major League Fishing tournament. So they're all out on the water. So I get to spend a few days just sitting in the hotel room or exploring a little bit of Bay City. Although you'll hear my voice is very weird today because we've had a lot of they have a lot of fires coming out of Canada, so it's affecting my voice a little today. But yeah, hanging out in Bay City. It's an interesting place, Quentin, because you can see like how it used to be like this thriving like logging town. It's right
Mm,
on the river, the
mm,
Saginaw, right in Saginaw Bay. And there's these big old mansions and gorgeous houses and everything. And then you can see like it just was hit economically really hard. And then
mm,
everything was just like empty and run down. And now it's starting to have a little bit of like this resurgence
mm,
where the places that are open up downtown, they're actually really cool. They're very like indie and like gorgeous little coffee shops or
yeah.
cool little spas or like really hip restaurants, like this really hip culture that's going on here. That's really cool. It's actually fun to sort of see in this kind of small little place. It's not very big. It's maybe it was like 20, 30,000 people that live here in the greater Bay City. So, yeah, pretty cool.
I'm trying to see something right now. It's like the only thing I really know about. I know a couple things about Michigan, but I also know that like there's a lot of like weed's legal in in Michigan, and there's usually a lot of dispensaries, and I
Yes, it
feel like
is.
I feel like that's like always a contributing factor to like the new architecture and like like the indie bohemian, the house plants, the warm colors, and like yeah, seeing that all over the place. That kind of reminded me of Buckingham, like sort of like I don't know if like Buckingham is necessarily run down, but I know that it's like a logging town, and like you see like the mansions, like it really kind of surprised me. Like you're used to like those old Southern mansions outside
Yeah.
of like Charlottesville, but like driving through Buckingham, I was like, oh wow, like they had like a lot of industry here in the past, and so that's interesting that like I know D was in that field for a while, like the
It
logging
was.
world, and
Yeah.
so even now, like you're kind of seeing that kind of resurface in your little trip here.
It's also interesting because, much like Buckingham, which is an economically depressed area, you see a lot of drug use. And so I'm not talking about like the kind
Yeah.
of drugs we were talking about, like plant medicine. I'm talking about like a lot of meth and
Hmm.
heroin, things like that. And so also around Bay City, I thought it was really interesting that they have lots of like billboards or signage about like always carry like, isn't it called Narcan? Like
Narcan,
with you
yeah.
all the time, Narcan with you all the time, or like Narcan saves lives, or like all of this stuff. Not so much anti-drug, but more just like let's save lives, which
Mm,
was interesting. So we went to the one night when we were here, they had this like community event and they had police and fire and YMCA and like the local animal shelter, I think, and like all the little community events. And there were probably 30, 35 tents. Really strong, beautiful community turnout. And multiple of the tables had stuff about,
Mm.
you know, Narcan and drug usage and just being safe and saving lives. And so it's interesting in these economically depressed places also how you will see more of that kind of drug use, just to
Mm.
sort of deal with like the fact we don't have jobs, there's not a lot going on. Again, like we were talking about with the pain factor and how that, how you go on some kind of pain medication and then that's no longer available, and then suddenly it's cheaper to get heroin rather than getting your oxycodone or hydrocodone or whatever oxycontin, whatever it is
Yeah.
that you get from the doctor. I'm so knowledgeable about my drugs, as you can tell. Um, oh, so it's just really been interesting to sort of like see that and see how, in a lot of ways, you're right, is very similar to Buckingham and has a lot of the same things, although this town is a lot hipper and has a
Yeah.
lot more going on than our
As I
little.
say, probably.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is actually like a little bit city like. Our, Buckingham doesn't really have a city. We say like the only city or town, the only town is Dillwyn, and that has, the population's 450 people.
But there's like a main street, I think. I don't know, like.
There's a main street. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lovely restaurant in the
Mm.
building that we own. It's a great soul food restaurant. So if you're ever in Buckingham, check out Feeding the Soul. It's a great restaurant. But yeah,
So
there's not a lot going on.
So yeah, I think we should kind of pull on a couple strings there that I was it's funny, I was thinking before I forgot what I texted you. My phone's a little bit far away, but I forgot what I want to talk to you about. But maybe we can weave that in later on. What came to mind is like let's talk about money in yoga and like finances, different points of view. Like I know I've read a little bit of what Swami Sachinanda had to say about money but I'm assuming that you would know a little bit more. And but yeah, it's like personally between us, it's like we're very much in transitioning periods. Like in my own personal life, like I'm in a different financial position than I've ever been in. I think a lot of us are in general, especially like trying to transition like in between careers or transition between like being self-employed or being a business owner or just kind of doing different things. Also, the role of money in like how to use the money, like
Mm.
how much of your money should go towards exercise or whatever, like the hobbies or different things that you're interested in. South, I just pulled up. Hey, baby. Um, all these different like yeah, different ways to like look at money, how to use money. I know,
Yeah.
and the belief systems that we hold around money like often restrain us the most. And then we just talked about the societal impacts of money. Oh, I do remember what I wanted to talk about because I think this goes hand in hand because also like let's talk a little bit about routine. So different different practices of routine, like either a daily practice or a cyclical routine or like a seasonal routine or just how like the different systems that we have in our life, how they implement certainly our finances but also just everything else in our life. And um you know kind of build on what's like a financial sadhana, or like what's like a financial what's a way to act in alignment without being in love with money, without being overly concerned about money, but just respecting what it is and not idolizing it, and maybe even making that a part of the routine. um we know like famously Americans aren't really taught finances, and even when we do, it's sort of like through the eyes of the employee employer relationship, but there's a lot of different ways to make money outside of that. So I don't know, just maybe we can start there and share a little bit of your experience on that front.
Yeah, I think money is such a great topic because um, people really think that spirituality and money don't go together. that's a pretty common belief, at least in the yoga world that I've run into,
Mm-hmm.
is this idea that you can't have money and be a spiritual person, which I think is silly. And there's not really any documentation on that. That's
Yeah.
just people's perceived ideas
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
money. And
Absolutely.
honestly, like if you see a lot of the gurus or a lot of the teachers, like money would come really easily to them because ultimately money is just energy. It's just like any other kind of energy. It's not really, I mean, we think of money as like this really physical form, right? Like dollars or things we can hold in our hand. But we know even today that most money is not something you hold in your hand. We don't have gold bullions in our safes, right? Like most of
Yeah.
our money is literally just, you know, zeros and ones on a computer somewhere.
100%. Yeah.
And so in that sense, like anything that has to do with like abundance or money really has to do with just like your energetic calling to it. And so you'll notice like a lot in Hinduism. In Hinduism, they like to give different qualities to different gods because I suspect that, you know, the idea of like this big, over all encompassing God figure or this unmanifest figure was too abstract for people, really. And so people needed something much more practical to focus on. So, in a lot of indigenous cultures, you'll see that they give qualities, specific qualities to different gods. And so it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a polytheistic belief anyway, but it definitely, like, gods represent different things. So in Hinduism, one of the things is the goddess Lakshmi. She represents wealth and prosperity. And so many times if you go into, I mean, if you go into a Hindu home or a Hindu restaurant or a Hindu like grocery store or anything, you will often see a goddess Lakshmi, and you will see like they will throw coins and money and dollars like at this statue or this picture or this representation. Partially because it's this idea of like, first of all, I think like it's a little bit twofold. Like one idea is that this representation, like, yes, you are offering your money to this representation. But I also think energetically there's something really powerful about donating to something that tells the universe, your subconscious, whatever, like, I have so much I can throw money at this statue. I can throw money at the feet of this goddess. Just like when we donate to different causes. And I think there's a long history of donation in churches and spiritual organizations. Yes, a little bit from the church's perspective can be greed oriented, but from the individual's perspective, I think that there's an interesting energetic thing that happens when you say, I have so much that I can give away to others. And whether that is to my own spiritual fulfillment, I give money, or I'm giving to people who are less fortunate than me. But I think having some sort of, even if you think you have no money, even if you really think like, I don't even have 2 pennies to rub together, I would take one of those pennies and like give it away. Because if nothing else, it just creates like this energy of like, I have more than enough. And that feeling of having more than enough, I think just brings more energy. Because the minute you get into a lack or like an energy of like, I don't have enough, first of all, the universe is so abundant. I always tell people who's like, if somebody's like struggling with money or really like having a moment, I'm like, just go outside and count the number of blades of grass or count the number of leaves on a tree. Because the universe is an abundant universe. Nature is so abundant, right? There's not a couple leaves on a tree. There's not a couple blades of grass. Like, no, everything in the universe, I mean, look at the hair on our head, how abundant it is, right? Everything about us is abundant. And when we get into these stories that we've been told about money, there's always so many stories in our upbringing that really feed like how we feel about money, how we interact with money. I was just fortunate that like when I was really young, I mean, Swami Satchidananda always said like, don't worry about anything, just show up, do your duty, and God will take care of you. The universe will take care of you. So I heard this from a time when I was really little. And when I was in my teen years, I just like something clicked with me and I really just understood it. Like, and one of the most powerful ways I would say I understood it was that I realized that money is not like a reciprocal, like I give you something, then you give me money. Like
Mm,
it is an energy that flows. And so, as with anything that's going to flow, like if you see water flowing, water flows through the path of least resistance. Water can go into little crevices. Water can go into all these different spaces, and money and energy is the same. But too often, I feel people think like money is um, like this direct giving and receiving. Like I do a job for you, you give me money. It has to be that direct. Whereas Swami Satchidananda sort of like taught us, no, you show up, you do your good in the world, and then the universe takes care of you. And so I've never had a feeling of like this direct thing. My family always laughs because they're like, Radha, like money shows up in your life more than anybody we know. Like
mm.
weird random checks. Like
Yeah.
I'll just open up my mailbox one day and somebody like said, some weird insurance thing that I had from 15 years ago. They finally tracked me down and now I have $1,000 check in the mail. Like,
Yeah.
this stuff happens to me all the time. I'm always the person who opens up a book and finds like, oh, I just stuffed, $100 in
Yeah.
here 10 years ago
Yeah,
that I
here we
totally
go.
forgot about. Like money just like constantly is like finding its way to me, but also because I really see it like if I'm showing up and giving, and I wake up every day and like, how can I give to the greater world, but also just to like my immediate space? How can I be kinder to the people who are immediately in front of me? How can I give value and just show up in a way that is of service in this moment? Um, then I feel like the universe is going to take care of me. I don't have to worry about where the money is going to come from. And that's what
Mm,
Swami Satchidananda would always say. It's like, don't worry about the money. Like do the good deed, do the good thing, like show up, do the work, and the money will come. And if it's not coming, then it's just an indicator that that's not the right time or it's not the right path. It's nothing about like you or your value or, nothing. It just is, it's just energetic. So
mm.
I have a lot to say on money, as you can see.
Yeah. No, that's cool. There one of my first bosses, one thing he said, he was like, as you're building your career, um, you know, don't concentrate how much money you make. Just concentrate on like your sense of fulfillment and the responsibility. And there's a couple things. Ooh, actually, let me add this in there. So, what is your thought on evolution? Meaning, like, most of us think like, okay, at 20 we're gonna make X amount of dollars. By 50 we want to be making 10 times X amount of dollars. Like, there seems to be like, you know, a sense or an expectation. Maybe it's a sense that as life goes on, um, as you have more children or more responsibility, or as you've matured and now more things on you, like you will be, you will have the opportunity to experience more resources. Maybe that's like specifically what you're working towards, like, in the construction industry, it's, in a lot of trades, especially union trades, in the military too, it's like very clear. It's like, you're an E3 now, you'll be an E4 in the future, you'll be an E7 sometime down the road. This is what they get paid. This is like the roadmap to get there. And so I find like, often we're like socialized that they're like, yeah, there is a transactional um approach to making money. And at the very same time, when you're in an actual job, it's like, how does one person make more money than the other one? Well, one person's more dedicated. You could say almost that person is more generous, right? They're working 60 hours and only getting paid for 40, and you're only working 40 hours. And the productivity is like all else held equal, they're more productive because they're actually being generous. In one way, like one way to look at it. And that's kind of how I felt in my career, where it was like, there's a lot of ways to make investments. There's a lot of ways to be generous. Like, I wonder what you think about this, where it's like almost biting your tongue, or as in like not being harmful to someone, or kind of like, dealing with the boss that might be insufferable, but still kind of like taking the higher path within yourself, and then like overall, like long term, that relationship might transmute, and now that person might be like advocating for you to get a promotion or whatever. And like what I liked about what you said was, it's a lot of the times when we're working a particular job, we get so
Hmm.
focused on what's promised. Like, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. I'm on year 5. This is how much my peers are making. This is what we're supposed to be making, blah, blah, blah. Rather than like kind of like taking an honest look at ourselves and saying, how generous am I with this? Am I spending all my time on my phone, talking to my homies, and seeing how that might correlate to how we get paid. I know in the Yoga Sutras it talks about like non-greed, and to one well established non-greed, all wealth comes, according to at least Swami Satchidananda's commentary and interpretation of it. And um, I love that idea. And I also will say, like in the Hindu system, what I remember from reading in the Bhagavad was um, that a lot of people find God through their pursuit of money. And I would even say that's kind of what started with me. Was I think I kind of told the story, but those of you who don't know, is like, I grew up in a Christian background. Both of my parents grew up in like a Baptist church, and at around 12, we transferred to a non-denominational Christian church. And from like 12 from like 12 to 16, I think, and then Apostle Kevin left when I was like 16, 17 years old. At 14 is when I started my lawn care company. And God was always on my mind, but like, you're still like a 15, 16-year-old boy. So like 14 was starting to cut grass, and then 15 was the first time I ever drank. So that was, I would say, like one of my main crossroads in life, was just like, partying or making money, like cutting grass. And I remember, like, when I would feel like, when I would think about the business and think about like, like what motivated me about the business was like, I just want to be generous with these people. Like, I feel like if I go to a person's yard and I know I could get paid $60 to cut the grass, but I only charge $30 to cut the grass, like that makes me feel better than if I were to charge $60. And it started to get to the point where, I would just be like, I don't know why I feel like this, but like I just have faith that, and I would kind of wrap that into my prayer. And I would notice, like, after those experiences of being generous, and also like, praying on it and praying on generous success, like, may I be successful, but may I never lose my capacity to be generous. I like saw the business exponentially grow, and like, and then now I had like my homies that I was able to help pay. And obviously that was like kind of the stepping stone for the rest of my like professional development. So I definitely experienced that in my own personal life, where it's like, if you just kind of focus on your relationship with the universe, your relationship with humankind, and how you can serve them to like the best of your capacity, like that can take care of itself. Um, but I will say, like, there's a lot of folks, like, I'm just like playing the devil's advocate here. Like, so you can hear someone say, hey, I can let go, and, maybe God will take care of me, but how do I know that he'll take care of my dog, my house, my wife, the kids, all the different things? Like, and I think that's where I struggle with sometimes, is like, we were talking about roles that we have to play. And, like, you might be playing the role of black man householder for this period of time. And, um, yeah, and it's like, how do you like the question is like, how do you know if, like, this is me personally, I think I know the answer, but it's like, if I'm is it a societal thing that the man is the head of the household, or that in that, like, or is that the role that you're supposed to play? And that it's meant to be like, okay, when I pray, when I'm letting go and letting God, does that mean that he's also providing for all those around me, or does everybody else around me have to also let go and let God too? And obviously and I think that, there could be money quarrels over that, because you could have someone who's like, yeah, just trust, like it's gonna work out, like it's gonna be fine. And then you have your other partner, he's like, what do you mean it's gonna be fine? Like, I'm looking at the numbers here, and I don't see the $100 hidden in the book. Like, I don't see that random check coming. So how would you, like, yeah, how would you help like navigate that space, and like, um encourage faith and encourage sort of your point of view, and maybe you're like experiencing others that might be less inclined to think that way.
I think also, oh gosh, there's so many layers of money, right? Money has so much energy for people and so much about our survival. Um, and I'm just gonna say, like, I don't want to also ignore, like, I have been very privileged when it comes to my opportunities in life. Um, my, I mean, my parents were, I was raised in an environment where my parents did not have a lot of money, but we always had a place to live. And even if there was only $5 for groceries, we had $5 for groceries, right? So I do want to just recognize that um, when I talk about faith and I talk about, knowing that someone's there to take care of you, I realize also that just even being able to have that seems like a little bit of a privilege. That knowledge even feels like privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so it takes an enormous amount of faith, and I'm not always good at faith. I mean, faith is not my easy default, but I think it takes a lot of faith to know that you're going to be cared for and that things are going to be okay. And I think so often we equate money with happiness. Like, if I have this, if I have this money, if this is taken care of. Now, I've had lots of periods in my adult life where I didn't know where the money was going to come to pay my rent, or I didn't have money to buy groceries that week, or, um, I was like, whew, how am I going to fix my car? Like, I don't have the money. Now, of course, looking back, it's easier to look back over the course of my life and see I was always okay. In the moment, I didn't think I was going to be okay. I didn't know that I was going to make it. And so probably the way that I deal with money now at like in my 50s
Mm.
is obviously different. Like in my 20s, I was so freaked out all the time. Like, I was like, where's the money going to come from? And oh my
Mm.
God, am I going to have a career? And am I going to have this? And, obviously, when you look back at your life, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, well, that worked out. Okay, I guess that's evidence, right? Because we're so often, like we were talking about, our mind wanting to gain evidence to back
Mm.
up these things. So now at, 53, I'm like, okay, I have a fair amount of evidence that I'm going to be fine.
Mm.
I think right now at like 53, actually, interestingly, the fear is moving less from money and more about my health. Right?
Mm.
Because all of a sudden, like I'm in my 50s, and so a lot of health stuff's coming up, and I'm like, ooh, okay, like that's interesting.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I think like we're taught like this money track, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna get a job, and also I think it's very generational, because I think this story of like you go, you get a job, you work at your job for like, 30, 40 years or however long, and then you're going to get rewarded and you're
Yeah.
going to move up the ranks and you're going to make manager and then blah, 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 whatever.
Mm.
I think that story is an older story
Yeah.
from past generations. I don't think that's realistic, particularly from like millennials and younger. I mean, I think Gen X, we fall a little bit still into that story. Some people have had the ability to stay in a job for a really long time and have that kind of relationship. But I think that most younger people, that's not their experience. And they're not
Yeah.
staying in jobs for 30 years,
Yeah.
35,
No.
40 years. Right?
Yeah.
We were just
Yeah.
talking about, so my husband, D, he worked in the prison system for many, many years, probably like 20 years. And a lot of his friends now are retiring out of the prison system. And that means that they started going to work there when they were like 20.
Mm.
And now we're in our 50s and they're starting to retire from the prison. So that's still a
Mm.
story that exists in certain places. But I don't think that story exists for most people. I think most people realize like a lot of rising up the ranks doesn't have to do with like I'm going to show up and I'm going to work hard and then somebody's going to recognize me and I'm going to miraculously move up the ranks. It has to do with a lot of other different factors that can happen. And I think younger generations are particularly aware of that. All that being said, it's a little irrelevant because, again, money is energy. Money is not, I go to work and I work really hard and then my boss recognizes me and gives me a raise. So often it has nothing to do with that. It has much more to do with like underlying beliefs, the way you interact with the world, the fears that you have. I love that quote that says like energy flows where attention goes. So you put your attention on something. Well, I think that's kind of why spiritual people often are not the most materialistic, because that's not the most important thing for them. So a lot of their attention goes onto their spirituality. Now, often you will find that then many things flow to them and stuff comes to them. But it's also, it's just like, it's kind of like a built-in survival of like, will I have enough? And money doesn't actually do this, because if money made people happy, then there'd be a lot of happy billionaires. And I don't really see that they're particularly happy. And if the whole purpose of making money was just to make money, then there'd be a lot of millionaires and billionaires who would do nothing all day except for lay on private islands. Actually, very few billionaires do I know of that just don't work. They're all still hustling so hard. So to me, that means like it's really the end goal is not the money. The money is not going to make you happier. Yes, there are some basic needs. So even when they look at like your happiness levels, they realize when you meet your basic needs, the increase of money doesn't actually increase your happiness significantly more. That happiness has to come from some other source. So therefore, what does money mean? Right? Money is a means. Money is really fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love money. Money can provide a lot of fun things, and it is really nice to be able to do things without having to worry about money. But that being said, like, again, energetically, I'm just going to give you an example. So, like, right now, we're staying in this room. I'm in a hotel room. It's a DoubleTree. It's a, mid-range hotel. The rooms are like $325 a night normally. We check in, we just, and I just kind of knew, like, I just had this feeling like everything's going to work out. We're just going to check in. There were no rooms available except for 2 nights. We're like, that's okay. We'll check in for 2 nights. Something's going to open up. I just had this feeling. Sure enough, it opens up. But when we go to check in, we check in and the D is just, we're just chatting with the people at the front desk, just trying to be friendly and be nice. And as we're chatting, we just mentioned that D is here with the Major League Fishing Association. They're like, oh, we have a discount rate for you guys. There's a discount rate, and the room will be $149 a night. That's a really big discount.
100%.
Did we earn it? Would we have gotten it if we weren't just being friendly at the desk with the people? No, it was just because we were chatting, and as we were chatting and just being friendly and like sharing about our life, then she was like, oh, you should know that I have this rate for you all. So that's the way, like, money, somebody could look at that and just be like, Radha, you're so lucky. You guys are so lucky. You travel, you guys do all these things. But I feel like it also is in direct reflection of how Dee and I show up in the world, and how we interact with just everything around us. And when my money gets tight, I immediately start looking inside. I don't look outside at all. I immediately go, wow, what's going on inside of me? Where do I have some kind of tightness or block around my money that's keeping me from living in this abundant thing? Because, again, the energetic flow of being in this room and having the discount and being able to afford the room at the rate we are, as opposed to us, I couldn't probably afford it if the room had been $350 a night. Like, that would not have been, our bank accounts didn't make any sense with us paying that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of faith that went into like, okay, something's going to work out and we're going to figure this out. And I was like, well, maybe we move to a different hotel. Maybe, we actually were booked into an Airbnb. This is the irony. We were booked into this Airbnb, and the Airbnb was so gross and so like funky that I was like, we can't stay there.
Yeah, we had to leave.
So the the whole thing is like also having a lot of faith, because it'd be easy for me to fall into like this super funk and like this fear of like, oh my God, I have no opportunity or, no way to change my circumstances other than with effort and fear and stress.
Hmm.
Or we could say, let's just be open. Let's be open and see what comes. And we still actually, so the last night we're supposed to be here, we still don't have a booking for that night. So we're still waiting to see, like, I'm still waiting to be like, okay, are we going to be in this room that night? Or are Henson and I going to sit in the lobby for 4 hours? Like, we'll check out and sit in the lobby for 4 hours as we wait for D. I have no energy really around either one. I'm like, whatever's meant to happen, maybe I'm sitting in the lobby and I'm supposed to meet or talk to somebody, or something
Yeah, something
happens
might
that was
happen
meant to
along the
happen.
way.
And that's why I needed to be in the lobby at that moment. So I try really not to have too much attachment around what the things look like and not have a lot of judgment. I mean, yeah, is it nicer to sit in my hotel room than to sit in the lobby? Yeah, that could be nicer. But I don't know what the universe has planned for me. And I always have had like this deep belief. Again, it was just sort of something that I became really aware of in my teenage years, particularly, that the universe just really loves me. God loves me. The universe loves me,
Yeah.
wants the absolute best for me. The whole purpose of me incarnating is to have some sort of like awareness of myself, to have some upliftment, to create a better, more aware version of myself. And so I always just figure whatever is happening to me, it must be in the best interests of me.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, because I've been through some tough stuff. You guys know through my story, it's not like my life has just been, easy peasy. But even when I go through all that tough stuff, I'm always looking at saying, all right, I may not feel it right now because this is really tough. And I don't try to like, what's that term they use when they, oh my gosh, there's like I don't try to spiritually bypass myself. I'm not trying to spiritually bypass myself either. Try not to spiritually bypass others, and I don't want to spiritually bypass myself by just being like, oh, it's all good. Isn't this so fun that I'm going through this shitty situation? But I am always looking at my own self and saying, like, how am I reacting? What am I doing in response to this? And so I feel like money is the same thing. Like if my bank account is negative, I'm looking at myself saying, I don't look so much as like, oh, I spent too much money. I go, what is the blockage there that's, and I'm not talking about being irresponsible. Like, I'm not saying go out and spend all your money and don't look at your bank accounts but I do think there's definitely way too much focus on some kind of like doing, as opposed to like you do things and then you get money, as opposed to how you are being and then the money flows to you. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. All of that makes sense. I think, I have a similar. I can back that up. Like, I agree with you. Where, like I always share with folks, like, try to live your life, try to live that dream life directly, or, you know, whatever dream finances that you think you have, like that is also correlated with that dream personality. Um, where it's sort of like if you can kind of look at it that way. And that's what my boss was saying. He was like, the money's gonna come with the responsibility, and you're gonna the responsibility, or the how do you put it? Like how you influence the world as that shifts and changes, and like the amount of money you're gonna have is gonna shift and change. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like I look at it like many different ways. Like, in the Bible, it's like seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be added onto you. It's often referenced, and um, I know we're going to talk about peace because that's what yoga, is all about. But that's what we're saying here. It's like, that worry mental state, that like that static mental state, manifests more of that, right? So now all of a sudden you go to your car. Now you're in that tense mode. Now you go to your car, and now there's a ticket there. Oh, now there's even more money that you have to spend, and then so it's like what Radha's saying too is like the opposite is true. Is that like the benefit of having faith is that like lack of faith is it can almost be like a spiral. Now we're not saying that God does love you and wants you to like learn from these experiences, but the spiraling negative or upward is just to like gain conviction in that quality that like yeah, the more selfish, you know, and I think that's kind of the tricky part with the rich. 'Cause like a lot of people feel that rich are extremely wealthy, and I think that's what we're saying is that like I mean that wealthy people are extremely selfish. And that's what we're saying is like yeah, typically they would be very like typically the ones that are probably the least happy are the ones that experience their own selfishness in their wealth, and those that are probably happier with the money that they have, they feel a little bit more selfless. There's another young Bible. I'm trying to like go through some of the things that you brought up. So when I was young, there's a Bible story that always stuck with me, sort of similar along the same vein, where there was a poor. I'm probably gonna butcher it, but there was a poor woman who everybody was doing tithes, and she only had 2 coins, and she gave the 2 coins, and then it was like I think Jesus saw or someone important saw, and immediately was like, "That's how you do it," and it was like gave her everything, and sort of how
There are
I
a
love
million stories like that
a million
in
stories.
yoga, Hinduism,
Yeah.
like Buddhism. I mean, there's just most religions have some
Hmm.
sort of story about that. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of that idea of like it's not about how much you give, it's about your mindset
Same
around it
mindset.
more than anything.
Yeah, and like and when you think when you because like we'll talk about Elon Musk for example, like I've listened to a couple of his podcasts, and I try to think like it's like yes, money isn't a problem, but also he thinks like money's not a problem. Like he thinks like just very much like mission oriented. Like this is the mission. We're trying to do this. And when I think like because at the end of the day like there are people in which money flows around, it seems to like on higher scales, and it seems to like be that it also is correlated to your aims, right? Like if your aims are just like to hold down the family unit and do that, then like and that's what God truly does have that's really what resonates with you, then yeah, you'll be given the resources to recognize that. And I think as you know and it's kind of like chicken and the egg kind of thing, where it's like is it divine inspiration, or is it coming from like your karmic like path, or is it a mixture of different things? But whatever it is that you vision for yourself, like you can't negate the fact that Elon Musk is a bajillionaire because he's thinking on a planetary scale. Jeff Bezos, they're thinking on planetary scales, like
Mhm.
and um so anyway,
And they
so
didn't
like
get their money on their own. Like they provided
hundred
some sort of
percent,
service that makes people want that. I mean, that's why
mm-hmm,
I'm always amazed when people are so hard on these
yeah,
millionaires. They're like, all they care about is money. I'm like, no, if you only cared about money, you probably wouldn't operate on that level
no,
because I mean, Elon Musk in one day will lose more
yeah,
money than millionaires, the wealthiest people in the world
hundred
would
percent,
make in a lifetime. And he will lose that just in a couple hours. And you have to have an incredible ability to like navigate that in and out of
mm,
um, ups and downs. And like, I mean,
mm,
if Elon Musk was motivated by money, again, he would not be working right now, people.
no.
He wouldn't work. Why would
You
he
know how you
work? If he has more money than he could ever spend in a million lifetimes. So why is he going to keep working? No, he's motivated by his mission. And
yeah,
his mission is strong and it is really big. And guess what? I don't want a mission that big. Like, I want to spend time with my husband
yeah.
and my dog and my family. Like, that's part of my mission. So I'm not trying to play on Elon Musk's global scale. And that's fine. I don't have to. And I'm not going to have the money that Elon Musk has. However, the mindset behind it and the energy that flows in and out, I feel most days that I'm just as wealthy as Elon Musk because for the lifestyle that I want and what matters to me, I
Yeah,
have more than enough for what I need to be able to live the way that I want to live. And that
yeah,
I think is really key. And it's not again like I um especially like in my old role dealing with a board and being an executive director and having a lot of influence over the finances, my financial attitudes would make them want to like scream because I just was like, I had such a high tolerance also for financial discomfort that the people who needed financial security and comfort, I would make them like want to throw up because I was just so like, whatever. Even if our bank accounts were negative or we had like a bad month or we couldn't pay the whole entire credit card bill or whatever it was coming up for us as a business, I treated it the same way I do in my personal life of like, okay, this is an internal problem. This is not, I'm just looking at our accounts and saying, how are we not serving enough? How are we not showing up enough? Where are we missing our mission? And they were like, what are you talking about? No, the money has to just be there. And I'm like, well, yes
It
and
won't get
no.
there just cause, yeah.
Which is so funny because when we actually bought the building, Swami Satchidananda, that's kind of how he dealt with it. Because like literally we needed a deposit on the building and it had to be there at a certain time. And the time was coming and the people who were the money people were freaking out because they were like, Greta, the money's not here. We're going to miss this building. And he said, if it's meant to happen, it'll meant to happen. And then as the story goes, apparently right as we're supposed to pay this deposit within like, I don't know if it was 30 minutes or 3 hours. It was a deadline. Apparently Alice Coltrane shows up and hands this check to Swami Satchidananda and said, I just really felt like I needed to make this donation to you. And boom, there's the money. We had the deposit we needed to secure the building. He always told us stories like that. And so for me, that's always just the way that I dealt with the finances. And so even when our accounts like got really low and everybody, they had wanted to sort of like get rid of the building when our accounts had dropped below this level. Well, by the time I showed up, our accounts were already below the level that they felt comfortable with. I kept us going for 3.5 years with this sort of like crazy money, like,
Yeah.
it'll work. Like, the money's going to come and yeah, sure, we get a donation. I'd be like, okay, great. Like we can pay these bills or we have this coming up. And then, but it's hard to be in that space with people. So I recognize also for those of you out there who are trying to create this energy in your life and you have these big forces against you, it does take a lot of like practice to be able to hold your own with those forces. And for me, it started to become like those forces and those voices were what were becoming really powerful. And this voice that I knew of like how to operate within the context of how Swami Satchidananda kind of taught us, or what was exhibited to me, that was getting harder and harder. And ultimately, that it was kind of a financial thing that led me to finally leave, was this kind of like, no, we're not on the same page anymore with how we want to deal with our financial situation. But yeah, I think it's challenging. I mean,
All
you're
right.
going to have a lot of people in your life, especially when you try to live this way with faith and around finances. There's going to be a lot of voices that are going to, tell you it's not going to work and you're being irresponsible. What are you talking about? Like, you can't just have faith. Like, everything's going to work. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
What's been experiencing this, Quentin? Because I talk a little bit.
Well, I
I
was
don't
gonna
think that we went into enough the leap you just made from the
Yeah, I was gonna
extreme
say,
financial security to the extreme
yeah,
financial insecurity of where
I
you're
was
at
gonna
right now.
say, and like sort of my transition because like, yeah, you know, so when I first got into yoga, I would say I started to adopt more of that attitude. I would say like more so even when I was young, like to kind of talk about what you were talking about, like my parents weren't super wealthy, but like we had some things, but it was very much like if I wanted anything other than like, you know, a couple pairs of clothes in the beginning of the school year, I was gonna have to figure out a way to like kind of make my own money. You know, the clothes got more expensive. My mom wasn't trying to do it, especially when I got into high school and I still had to be fly. So like I would say like in my own mental like the way that I view my own life is like I didn't really have to worry about money, and money was sort of like directly proportionate to like my efforts in the world, and like that was very important to me. So when I started working construction, it was ironic because when I worked the hardest, when I was working the hardest, the most concerned about money, that was always when I had the least amount of money. And it came a point in my life, especially like probably when Soph and I were engaged, like in 2021 ish, like something around then. As we've been together for a while, I had had a taste of like a little bit of the lockdown lifestyle. I was like, you know what I really want in my life? Like, I actually want to spend time with, like, with this woman. Like, I want to have a good time. I want to have, like maintain a standard of living, quote unquote, but like just be very like upfront with what it is and have faith that like God's my homie, really. Like I look at it as like we're watching this movie called My Life together, and God wants this movie called My Life to be epic, like viciously epic. Like there's gonna be parts, there's gonna be lows where there's gonna be lows that are epic, and the lows are epic, and the highs are epic. Like it's all
Yeah.
epic, and but specifically for me, like tailored towards me. So to me, what's epic is having a beautiful wife and dog and family and all these kind of things. So it's like sometimes I lose faith in that, and you know, and I think we all do. Where it's like, is this a societal stuff, or especially you get a little bit on the path, you're like, is this just societal stuff, or is this actually like truly what I want? Like, what do I really want? And it's like, no, um, I know what I want. You know why? Because it's like when I look back to when I was 3, it's sort of the same similar thing. So when I started to focus on what I considered the kingdom of God, which was that childlike joy. Like when I would try to express things that would make that childlike joy come out of me, or like that childlike benevolence where you're just trying to help just cause, like, you ever see little kids that just come to you and they just want to give you something? Like, I just want to give
Hmm.
you something, like that type of energy. And as we become adults, it gets more sophisticated because you can give someone wisdom too. And that's like I would say you get paid for that, like, in this little analogy. And that's kind of how the spiritual, we're talking about like the more spiritual community, like, they're not necessarily poor, like, but the money that's required to execute whatever mission it comes, as long as it's like a mission that's in alignment. And I found that in my own life. So I was like, okay, I know that this isn't coming from a bad place. Like, I'm trying to develop a lifestyle where what I'm doing is tangibly beneficial to the world in some way. Like I still, you know, I like construction. I like yoga. I want to see how I can make this work. So then what ended up happening was, like, as I started to just mentally focus on that, things started to shift. So I'll tell this story. We'll build on this in the future. But um, so let's see, year 3, at the end of year 3, actually December of 2021, I think, or 2021, I believe. I was basically a safety manager on this project, and it was like the heat. It was like that was like the real COVID winter, and the job site was called Reston Town Center. It's like an 800. It had like 800 people on the job. It was a 28-story building and a 20-story building and like a land bridge. It was a really big job, and just kind of navigating that space, navigating like managing this, because construction was never shut down. Just for those of y'all that have forgotten. So we always had to work through it, and we don't get training in none of this stuff. It's just like we have this new protocol that we think will help mitigate COVID. So that was my time, and I really got to see, like, everybody's kind of scared. It's winter. My dad had passed away, and I'm like really reflecting on life. Like, how do I really want to spend these times? People are getting COVID left and right, and I'm, sitting here in this job. And so then I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I just want an opportunity to spend more time with my family, like baby steps, like just somehow, some way. And as I started to focus on that, it's like, I got a promotion, and that also helped Safa not have to work as much, or like that kind of set things up for Safa not have to work as much. And then as things continued, like then I get transferred to a job right after my rotation's done and safety, to be like what I usually am, which is a superintendent. And I go back to doing that, and it's in Quantico, right next to my house. I get to take like 2-hour lunch breaks with Safa, because Woodbridge and it's like 6 miles away. I get to see her almost every single day on my lunch break. Um, I had a much more cooler superintendent. Our foreman's meetings weren't at 7 or 7. That was late. A 5. Now they're at 8. So it's like I'm getting to sleep in, and the job site's doing better. It's like a rainy season during earthwork, which means I'm not working because it's raining. so we can't do any earth work. And it was like, just as I continued to focus on, like, no, what is it really like? What is the life you really want to live? What are you really interested in learning? How do you actually want to show up in the world? How do you actually want to be around your friends? Like, what do you really want to like develop into? And I started to focus more on that. And literally, like, so that I was on that project in Quantico for a year. And as I was on that project, near the end of it, I was like, I don't really like what I'm building. We're building a war building. And it was interesting. Like, it intentionally built to combat Iran, China, and Russia before the Russia conflict, before any of this stuff. It was just like, really, it's a proactive building um, to wage cyber warfare. And also it was called, it's for wargaming, so it teaches wargaming to officers. And so yeah, as I was on that job, I was like, I love the lifestyle, but I'm also like, well, it's not just about the lifestyle. It's about like, how are you serving the planet? Like, do you want this intellect to be used in a way that can be destructive to the planet? And then I was like, okay. So this is like a little bit of my law story. So I was like, I don't know how, I'm not gonna just quit this job. And you have those feelings where it's like it's coming to a head, but it's not like enough to act on. So I was like, I know I want to be on a different job site, but I'm not just gonna be like, I like the people that are here. There's a lot of strings that are here. I have open projects. Like, this is one of those things that I might have to get removed from. So this was on Quantico, on actual base. So I had to have an ID. So my ID expired in July, right? Like the end of July. So I had to get it renewed. And Saba's birthday is July 24th, right? And we had a trip planned July 18th, 19th, 20th to go to Atlanta, right? So I was like, I could either renew my badge before I go to Atlanta or I could renew it afterwards. Push came to shove, I ran out of time. I didn't have time to like go to a little thing and do the whole thing. So we ended up going on this trip to Atlanta, right? Um, so Safa and I, like, our well, our plant medicine of choice is herb, right? It's weed. And so we had weed from DC that we got, and we brought it with us to Atlanta on this vacation, on a road trip. We went through like Smoky Mountains. We went to this tree house. It was super dope. It was like really legitimately one of the most beautiful experiences of my entire life. And I was sitting there in the treehouse. I'm like, this is what I would rather build. Like, I love building things. I love being in nature. Like, this is what inspires me. Like, building this on a commercial scale, because we're meant to like live like this, like in this feel the like you feel the abundance around you. You really feel God's presence around you when you're in nature, because like you feel like nature's giving you cues on when to move, like where to be, where to sit. Like, okay, this spot's really hot. Let's sit over here. Now that you're over here, you have an interesting view and you see something like what you were talking about. You might not have had that plan, but now the mosquitoes push you to the next spot. And now in this next spot, now you have this core memory that you just built. Stuff like that. So anyway, so on our way back, we're driving through like rural Georgia and Rabun County, and we get arrested. Well, we get pulled over for speeding, and then we get arrested because we were smoking. I smoked a J in the car, and then we get, they search our car, right? And they're like, basically, allegedly, I'll go through the whole story, but they're like, allegedly, you have over the limit, you're under arrest, basically, right? So I was like, okay, cool. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is like literally the worst case scenario for my mom, right? Like, my mom's like in rural Georgia, she's far away
Arrested in the
in
South.
in the South, like, we're and like, yeah, definitely we're the only black. I'm the only black person there. Salva's the only Arab there. Everyone else is white in the holding cell. And to me, it was like really a beautiful story because it really like deepened my compassion for people that are in jail, because it's like really unfair. And like, I have a ton of privilege. Like, I was 27 at the time and I never got in trouble, and I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and like I speak like this. So when they were talking to me, they were like, what are you doing in here? Like, even the people that were in there, like the kids that kind of grew up in that system, they were like, why'd you drive through here? Like, you should know, like you drive in clean, you leave with a misdemeanor. That's the main industry there, is the police. Like, they all know they have speed traps in the bottom of all those hills there in the Smoky Mountains just to get guys. All the newest facilities are the prison and the security guys, and the cop cars are the cleanest cars, and like nobody else has anything. So we'll go into that story on some of the things I learned from that. But anyways, regardless, since that happened, when I went back to work, like when we went back to work and I had to renew my badge, it was on my system that I had a marijuana charge. And the guy, and it's
Wow.
so crazy. The guy's like, I really don't care about this, but this is a federal base, so you got to go. And what was even more intense about it was my boss, so the senior superintendent was there. His boss, the project executive, was there. Their boss, the vice president, was there, and then the senior boss, Joe Hogan, who ended up actually running jobs in Atlanta, he was there. All of my chain of command was coincidentally there that same day that I went to renew my badge, and I was like, "Hey guys, I can't come back on the job site." So I have that conversation, um, and basically my boss is he's just super cool, and I was like, I just got in a little bit of trouble, and they'll let me go. He's like, okay, cool, whatever, we'll just figure it out. I was like, all right, cool. Call HR, and I'm like, hey, I got in trouble for like a weed charge, and she was just like, oh, if you didn't pass it, if you don't fail a drug test, we don't really care, So I'll just find another job for you. I literally, I literally Literally, because remember, this is a DC based job, so all of us live in
Yeah.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but we just so happen to
Yeah.
be a federal contractor. So there's kind of that energy where it's like whatever. So if she calls me, I get a call later that day. That like I go to the job in the morning at like 8. I go to renew my badge at like 11. So it was like 12 when I'm like, can you grab all my stuff from my office and bring it to me like outside of the base so I can dip? I get a call at like 3 that evening, and they're like, hey, we're actually looking for a superintendent to run a medical office building, like over, on this other job. And I'm like, when are you looking for them? They're like, right now. They're like, oh, the job doesn't start. We need to build the schedule. Um, we don't start for a couple months. All this means, like in practice, it means you're going to be working from home for the next like 2, 3 months and still getting paid like really it's a promotion because I was the assistant superintendent before. I had someone over me. Now I'm the head superintendent. And I was like, it's a medical office building. I got linked up with one of my favorite mentors on that job site, still to this day. Had a great team, had a really great project, and I was really able to run that job where it was like, on that job, it was doing so well that like I really barely had to be there. Like on certain times, I was able to train up the team underneath me. That job ends. Now we're getting at the point where it's like, okay, we know that we want to move to Colorado. And I tell my boss, I'm like, hey, we're looking to move to Colorado. Is there any options of like transferring? Like, are there any buildings that we're building over there? Do you need someone to help us when work over there? Like, whatever. And I also told him, I was like, hey, I've been running work for the last several years consecutively. Is there any way that I can get more in the design side of things, you know, like review designs before they get in my hands as a superintendent, because a lot of the times there's a lot of mistakes that are made in the drawings that could be fixed ahead of time. So we have a whole department dedicated to this. And so I was like, in my heart of hearts, I was like, this will also give me an opportunity to like just be with my wife and family more because I won't be on a job site every day. So they're like, cool, yeah, we got just the thing. It's I'll be specific. So those of us that know Northern Virginia, Clark is building like the Landmark Mall right on Springfield, like right on 395. There's the Landmark Mall, which for all my life really was closed. So now they're breaking that down. They're building a parking garage, and then they're building like a medical complex. So 4 buildings, like 2 hospitals, like a ER, like just like 4 buildings on like a large parking garage. So I was gonna run one of the buildings there, and then they're still like in 20% design phase, so they're still having architecture meetings. So I was like, this would be perfect. I'll have 8 months of design review, working from home, being with my family, maybe having meetings here and there before the job site starts that I'll actually be building. Like this is like a dream. This is a dream scenario for a superintendent, because usually we get in the job and everything's jacked up already, and now we have to fix everything with no money, right? So I'm like, this is perfect. So a month after that conversation, he's like, actually, nah, we don't need that. We actually basically have a terrible job for you. It's starting now. It has all the worst conditions. Like we have to blast through the bedrock. You have to run underneath railroads to tie in your utilities. Like literally the worst case. So I told him, I was like, I'm not interested in that. Like I'm not interested in that. Is there anything else that we can do? Right. Especially since I'm moving to Denver, like this isn't a good idea for me to start like the most important part of the job here. So that let's say that conversation was in January. He was like, okay, I'll give you a call back in like a week. I'll figure it out. Essentially 4 months passed, still getting paid this entire time, still putting in my time card. I'm not working at all. And I'm teaching yoga at this point, and like that was kind of my lifestyle and me giving to others. That was basically building off what you were saying earlier, Radha. That was my mindset where it's like this is very, very rare and this never happens. So I'm just gonna take it as a sign that like the other things in my life are what's paying is what's bringing in this paycheck. I get a call in April. My boss literally goes, "Did you enjoy your break?" I didn't talk to him for months. I was like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna call me back. Like, I thought you were gonna tell me I had another assignment." He's like, "Did you enjoy your break? I know you wanted some time off." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Help us try to win this job. It'll be like 2 weeks, basically remote work. You might have to visit the hospital for like an hour to write up like a little plan on how you would enter the building and stuff." And I was like, "Okay, cool." I do that. I basically do that on vacation, and then I don't get a call again for another 3 months. All still getting paid this entire time, and then I get a call back 3 months. I'm literally sitting there smoking with my buddy, just having a great conversation, and my boss calls me. He's like, "Congratulations, you just got a raise, and also like we have to have you do something at this point. Like we can't. It's already been like 6 7 months of you working, us just paying you, and like we have this little project. It's really low key. It's really light. It's like just like a finishing on the job." So basically, from June to December, when I moved, I maybe worked 40 hours that entire time. It was sort of like a warranty list kind of thing. And all the while, like emphasizing what you were talking about earlier, Ryder, just focusing how am I being in my conversations with my wife? How am I serving the people around me? What am I sharing with my friends? And feeling, and also making a habit out of donating. Like, just like if I am gonna get this like crazy boon for whatever reason, then like I can at least be, if I'm going to consistently get paid for this, I can consistently donate, or I can consistently give in like a way that was more systematic. So every Monday we would just like have a pile of stuff and send it to the donation center. And
Yeah.
that started to
I don't
be,
want to interrupt the flow of your story too much, but I just
please.
want to say, like, one of the really key things I hear you saying right now, and this is one of the keys, I think, in general, is the acceptance. Like, you have to be willing to receive. So
Mm,
the universe can try to give to you, but if you are not receiving, then it's not going to work. And what I really hear you saying is like, I just saw it for what it was. I just received the gift of what it
mm,
was.
mm.
It's not like I was trying to pull one over on the company. It was just,
Yeah.
this was the gift of what it was. And I just tried to make the most of the gift. And so
So,
often I see people being like, I don't deserve it, or
mm.
no, I have to earn my keep, or I have to earn this, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, just receive the gift. The
You
universe is
know,
giving you a gift, just receive it.
I say to people often, I'm like, I accept miracles. And to me, what it means, like really accepting God in your life, is accepting that miracles are going to start happening in your life. Like that's another way about it. Like epicness is it's a little bit above normal. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just a little, it's like there's a thing in the yoga, in the astrological sign is called Sagittarius. Like there's like, it's just like that little extra, like that gift that you really don't deserve. Like, and that gift can come in the form of like a straight up boon or a lesser consequence. So sometimes you might be like, oh shit, I did something. Oh God, like, or whatever. But then like through through God wanting to have like an awesome experience with you, like he might lessen that consequence. And so that's how I
And
feel,
I
where it's
think that
like,
happens on the flip side too, Quentin, because
yeah.
like, when you take things personally, when you think you've earned it, then you also think
Mm.
you didn't earn it. Whereas,
Mm.
like, if you can take a neutrality about it, whether it's a good thing happening to you or a bad thing happening to you, you're just like, this is all just for my benefit. I just get to take and
Mm.
receive what's coming,
Hmm.
and I just get to keep receiving.
Yeah.
And
And
so I think then it
mm,
takes the sting away from it when quote unquote, bad things happen to you, because it's not personal. You're like, none of it
yeah.
was personal. It was all a gift.
Yeah, and it
So
wasn't
if it's all a
planned.
gift, then,
He's like, and you don't
you
see
know,
it coming too. Like, and that's the thing. It's like if I saw all of this stuff coming, then it would also change my point of view on like I don't see the bad stuff coming, like I don't see the good stuff coming. Like it is what it is. I like to think of money like air, where like sometimes you have to exhale and inhale and exhale and inhale. And what's interesting about like an advanced, the more you practice breathing, the longer you can exhale, the longer you can inhale. And I think that that's like that comfort in the discomfort that you were talking
yeah.
about. Like Yeah, like the more experiences you have, like with that slow exhale, maybe that retention holding at the bottom of having no money, and then breathing back in and then having money. It's like I think money kind of flows like that, where
Mm.
there's the building, the retention, the exhaling, the retention, the building, and it's just like different. It's all a part of God's plan, but how we like yeah, there hypothetically there's a situation in which you can still maintain your peace of mind, that entire system, and understand this is all just part of the money breathing process. It's just like energy. Like energy isn't always increasing, right? Energy has to cycle, right? There's a sleep cycle and a wake cycle, for example. And so I got to that. So
All
anyway,
right, go
so
back to, I was going to say, I
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
to,
back to the story. So
right, because it just keeps getting better, I think.
yeah. so as I'm nearing the end, it's like, okay, well, there's another thing about money too. Or just life. It's like you can't get nothing. You can't get something for nothing. Like faith does require effort. It does like yeah, you do have to open up your sail in order for the wind to take you, kind of thing. And I think that that's the thing where it's like, you can put your little plans and schemes together. I think that that is like much appreciated. Sort of like, I can just imagine like my dad watching me like as a little kid, like make my plan for like whatever like my week's gonna be, and he's just looking at me like that's so cute, like, and he's just listening to my plan, and he's probably thinking to himself like, how can I make like his plan a little bit better. And I like to imagine that's God's function with my life and with my finances is like, okay, I like your little plan here. Okay, I see what you did there. I see the sketch and the outline you made. Like, I see that. And as a superintendent, like that applies on the project scale. So he's like, oh, I like your little baseline schedule that you made. But like, let me add this in here. Oh, let's add a war in Ukraine, and let's shut down all the MEP equipment from coming to the job site on time. Let's see how that mixes things up. And I think life's like that where and especially like the beauty of running these jobs, and like what I took away from being a superintendent was that like you have this plan, all the critical activities might switch and swap and flip around, and then at the end it still ends like probably even better than you could have planned. And that's what happened with that job. And I remember, so I tried to translate that future and forward. So I was like, okay, what do I really want to spend my energy and time on now? Like, I don't really want to one work for a period of time. We're moving to Denver, right? Like what else is there? So I just like walked into Grounded. Big shout out to Grounded. It's a cafe, yoga studio, and plant shop in DC. And I was just like kind of talking to the owner there. And I was like, hey, I only got a couple weeks here. Like this place is like a dream come true. It just opened. I'm so sad it opened up right as I'm about to leave. But like if I can just teach a couple classes here for free, like that would be dope. Like that would be a dream come true. If y'all need any help with anything like emails or whatever, like just let me know. I'll help you out for free. And then she's like, okay, cool. I end up coming home and getting an email from them offering me a job. They're like, hey, we actually need a wellness lead. Like a lot of your ideas sounded dope. Like, come help us out. Cool. The amount of money it was like, I have a property in Virginia and we don't have all the rooms rented out. So basically, that amount helped the stopgap for covering that mortgage. So I was like, okay, dope. This works. Boom. I get over here and I'm like, really, what I want to do is like have enough time to like birth life word, like really, really bring it to life. Like I already had the brand. I was already doing like some free classes in Virginia, but like the virtual presence, like that's what's really important to me right now. And also like expanding like my capacity to teach to different audiences. And so like I just kind of focused on that for that. And like, I left Clark. We had savings, and I was like, we're just gonna use the savings, and we're just gonna like invest all of the intention into like starting this, because like if we don't ever like put the intention into starting this, or like putting if like if this is something that I feel like I want to spend like a lot of my time doing, and I spent say 4 years in school to become a civil engineer, solely focusing on that, maybe having a part-time job here and there, then if I'm going to start this new venture in my life, like I'm gonna have to like have a little bit of faith and be like, I need to be supported for a little bit. And so by the grace of God, I'm married, and for the last couple before I moved, I was making enough to be able to where Safa didn't have to work too much or really much in the last like 18 months. And then now she's like working and helping hold things down. And then but it's just like I said, like it's an inhale and an exhale and an inhale and an exhale. And you know internally when you need to breathe in, and nothing's going to stop you from breathing in. And I think that's how we could look at money too. It's like if you need it, and nothing's going to stop it from coming for you. If it's yours, nothing's going to stop it from coming from you. I like this analogy a lot with my dog. Like when I go on hikes, I walk my dog off leash, and sometimes like she'll like meander like off the trail up and down the mountain, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And like there'll be times where it's like I'm walking and like I don't see her, and I'm like, huh, I wonder where Kimber is. But I'm like, whatever. And then there will be times where I'm walking and say a person's coming, or like I hear a dog coming or something like that, and I need Kimber to be next to me so I can control her. And I'll feel a sense of panic almost, and then I look for her, and those are the times when she's literally right by my side, like right there, right?
Yes.
And I think money's like that. I think life's like that, where it's like sometimes like when you feel that sense of panic, rather than like going into that mental fear cycle and sort of almost like clouding your judgment, turning down the miracle or whatever, like just look down by your side and I'm like, oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
And that's really helped me out. And you still have to be like practical. Like Miss Richmond, my mother, yeah, all this is nice, boy, but like you got a family, you got you have things that are, that you have responsibility for. So I think for all of us, it's just like we just have to understand, speaking out loud, but also all of us, it's just like when the going gets tough, just get a little tougher and understand that there's wind at your back. And that's really it, where it's like, okay, now the money's a little bit lower. Now let's I'm ready to open myself up for a new opportunity and then see what comes from that. And I think I do want to also mention like drug use a little bit and like just like different things in that, because that's kind of correlated to all this. And like you're saying with your own health, it's like it's weird how drugs work, because like you can have all the money in the world, but if your body's full of pain and you have no mental clarity and you feel no peace and da 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 da, like I think a lot of people turn to drugs for that reason, or they'll use their money obviously to primarily buy quote unquote drugs for that purpose. And I think that's where we see that pipeline where you can have plant medicine in your life, but you can't have addiction. Or you can, but addiction is
Yeah.
what draws down, and then you start to like live for that drug, and then God's like, okay, well, you're my child. I want you to have what you want to have, and it can like kind of lead to that down cycle. And that's
Do you know what
obviously what
so
I
much
see.
of the healing of the addiction is, though,
Talk to me.
Quentin? Is
Mm.
belief in a higher power. And that's kind of what we're
Hmm.
talking about here, right? Is that
Yeah.
faith, that incredible faith that it takes. And so, it, over and over again, they try to heal people with addictions.
Yeah.
And they found that the thing that seems to be the key part is like you don't get to heal unless you believe that there's some kind of higher power
Mm.
that's, you know, flowing through everything. And so I think that's the same thing, like if you have money fear, or you are addicted to money, or you feel like you have to hustle all the time, you got to work so hard, or you have this real deep fear of survival
Mm.
that comes up around money, is it just takes a lot of faith too. I mean, I love that analogy that you gave of the breath, because I think that's so perfect, because breathing does not really require you to do anything.
Hmm.
You can enhance your breathing by consciously breathing deeper and exhaling and holding the breath and doing all these beautiful things with breathing. But basically, ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't have to consciously breathe.
Yep.
All you got to do is like not get in the way. Like if you don't hold your breath, even if you try to hold your breath, the next breath is coming in, whether you like it or
100%.
not. Like you will
Yep.
pass out and then the breath will come in.
Yeah.
And so realizing that all of life is really like that, of like this feeling of like, all I got to do is like kind of stay out of the way. I don't have to be, I don't have to do so much. I can just be, and be in this flow, be in this grace, be in this space. And I'm just going to caveat this here. I've had a lot of practice. Again, I've had a lot of years of practicing this way of being. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, I don't get it, or I still have fear, or I have moments. Like I still have moments where I'm not in perfect faith and I, try to hold my breath. Um, However, it is a practice, and the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. And the more you start doing it just with little things, like you were saying, I love that earlier when you were talking about just like little ways to implement this, is when you start with little ways, you're going to find that you get better and better at it. And so start with like the little things. Like, don't necessarily start with the big, huge, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make my mortgage payment? Start with the little stuff and just be like, I wonder if I can create some flow or some energy around, you know, paying for gas or some groceries or my coffee, and just start seeing if you can kind of play around with the energy flow and how that works. And see if you can start to also see the moments, these little miracles that happen, and stop and recognize them when they're happening. Because that's the other thing, is so often like the miracles are happening, the gifts are coming, we just don't stop and we don't pay attention to them. So our focus is not on the fact that like, oh, this was such a huge gift and these gifts can amplify and I can create more of this in my life. And so I think like just practicing small, you know me, I'm always the like, start small,
Yeah.
practice doesn't have to be crazy. Like, you don't have to jump in the deep end with these practices. You can just start with little teeny bits each day, and it will build into something really powerful and really magnificent in your life. And so I think like that's kind of the key is, you know, we are talking, we're telling our stories and we're talking about this, but it comes on a lot of years. Like you said, like your practice started what, 15, 17 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Of how to do this. My practice started 40 years ago, like of how to sort of like sit in this energy. And there have been years where it was easier and years where it was harder.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're making me think of something that I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention was feng shui. I don't know if you're into feng shui at all. Um, but yeah, like I like to think of money as almost like blood of the material world, kind of like in a kind of way, like you know, and all of us have a home space. If you're from a more militant background, it's always like clean your room. There's like stuff like that or whatever. But there's there is a correlation I found. Like if there is something that you feel like you like you got no money, you got no job, you ain't got nothing going on, you don't know what's going on, clean up your space, right? You can always clean up your vessel too, because what we're saying is it's all just about the flow, right?
Yeah.
And I'm I don't know if it's true exactly or not. Like, this verdict's still out, but I do feel like, or at least it's certainly mentioned in Christianity that it's like, yeah, like the amount of blessings you get, the weight of the blessings you get from God are very much directly proportional to your capacity, right? Like, that's why you hear people who get like lottery and then 3 years later they're all broke and like, everything jacks up. And then other people get this opportunity and they're able to build on it, right? And so when a very like just try it out, like there's a lot of rabbit holes in feng shui you can go down. um there's a specific style that I like, and it has like he breaks down the house into 9 quadrants. But regardless, my advice is like just have something that represents prosperity to you. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like my dad gave me a pinky ring, and it has like a purple amethyst stone on it. Purple's a good color for prosperity, royalty, like gold, lavishness, $100 bills, whatever. And just have a space in your home that is like dedicated to that, like to the miracles in your life, whatever that means. Like I feel a little bit extra in this space, like a little bit of something I don't deserve, right? A little bit of that energy, and just try to even see those things in your own life, like, oh wow, like yeah, that was a crazy gift that my friend gave me. Like my friend gave me a guitar, like 2 guitars, like for what, like different things like that, and try to just reflect on that every now and then, and how like the boundlessness, like the gifts that like are out there is like and that you've already experienced is really endless. And then try to keep that space clean, like um without like going too deep into feng shui. Basically, the emphasis is that like your physical space is correlated to your mental space, and that your physical space, like literally you have a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, a bathroom, they represent different functions of the mind, essentially, and that like your physical space correlates to that. So if your living room is super messy, where you usually have friends over, and in your own life you realize that like, wait a minute, I have some beef with my friends, or I'm not really able to get that close with my friends, clean up that space, reorganize that space, and see what it does. So for me, it's like
It has
typically
to do, does it have to do with like the way the energies flow through the space,
both.
right?
So
It's
it,
like the way the energy is flowing. And so if there's anything blocking
hmm
or cluttering up the flow,
hmm
I know they have something similar in, Ayurveda and Hinduism too. It's
yeah,
like a similar practice. But it has to do with like, anything that's blocking. And that's why they tell you to like have your bed facing a certain way or to
hmm
have different quadrants of your life in certain areas or to have gold reflecting mirrors and things like that, because it all has to do with like the way the energy is able to
yeah,
flow. And so if we're talking about money being energy,
hmm
then again, make sure that flow is moving around. So
100%. Like even
anyway,
in feng shui specifically, there's like the family section of the house, which has to do with your base foundational bills. Prosperity has to do with like we're talking about bonuses, lavish vacations, stuff like that. And money kind of touches like most things in the house. It can touch health too. But if you just focus on those two sections, like where do I keep my bills? How's like my library look? Or how's my office desk look? And then where do I feel most prosperous? And I would say the last thing is there's also a space for relationships. This is the one that has like resonated the most in my personal life, that I like really gave me conviction for it. Um, and as you get deeper down the rabbit hole, it's like each of the guas, they're called, they all have an element and a color. So if you just add that color or that element to that space, you heighten that part.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so it
Talk
gives you
about simple things. I love simple
it's
things, and
simple
that's such a
things.
simple one.
Yeah, so it's like if you know where your prosperity corner is, add purple to it. And so with relationships and love, that was always in my garage, like my garage corner. And if my garage got cluttered, as soon as I would clean my garage, like that same day, I would have a whole bunch of people come over. And like, you
Uh,
know, just because you open up that space. So like that's like kind of the deeper wisdom behind, and we even know that within our own physical bodies. If you don't keep your body clean, people aren't gonna want to be around you. Like like so you can kind of look at it that way. Like money is a thing that wants to have a relationship with you. It wants to flow in and out through your life in a healthy current. It doesn't want you to hold on to it. It wants to do its thing. It wants to be productive too. And these little things I've found have helped me. That, and even like, when you're feeling like money pressure, money is like considered in some schools of thought like an earth element, right? Like we're talking about like kind of like the blood of the material like world, how you can buy things, how you can get around, like stuff like
mm,
that. And a good way to balance out earth, like a good way to balance out a lot of earth energy is exercise. So it's movement. It's like kind of combating that stuckedness, because that might be what's almost blocking the money, is like there's rigidness within your body, within your system, that just movement can help. And I think like we're not really trying to give you answers like, yeah, that mean I'm never gonna say, yeah, work overtime to make more money, or like like you can, but usually what's happening is that like oftentimes that work that you're doing might actually be impeding your ability to make more resources, because you're less generous, because you're frustrated when you get off work, like all the stuff we talked about in pain management. If you're in that mental state, you're probably much less likely to give. If you're addicted to a drug, of course, or a substance, you're much less likely to give. So these are just little things here that can open up that space for you to give. And I do want to say one last thing about like different plant medicines, and like herb and mushrooms, like my two that are preferred. And like just for anybody in their own personal life, caffeine, like I don't drink coffee at all, and I usually don't drink caffeinated tea, and I have no disrespect, I know a bunch of people that do. But like that's your thing, then that's your thing. Like whatever your thing is, let it be your thing. Even if drinking is your thing, let it be your thing. But try to address your relationship with that. Is this impeding my capacity to serve? Like after I consume this thing, do I still want to be like, how do I want to show up? And I love what you said, that 'cause the most important thing to me is you kind of started off by saying this, is like kindness. like is really your religion, you know, in a way. It's like you were kind to them, now they drop the price. I think Soph and I have many experiences where like your bank account says this, so the ground rises to meet you through in response to your kindness and your graciousness and the way that you make people feel when you're around them. They're like, oh, you're my homie, I'm gonna hold you down. Like
Mm.
that pinky ring I was talking about, it was an Iranian guy, and like he was connecting with Safa over the war, the Iraq Iran war in the 80s, and like, but he held us down, and he was like, oh, I'll give you $200 off, like don't even worry about it, like you're basically family. And yeah,
And
emphasizing
receiving that and just being like,
thank you.
I received this. Thank you. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for this gift. I receive it.
100%.
Again, having that, again, and that goes back to the energy flow of just allowing it to flow and that feeling of gratitude. Because so much of gratitude and kindness are interlinked. It's hard to be grateful when you're not feeling kindness towards yourself, particularly. Like kindness to yourself is so important, and that's really the root of the kindness. Because if you're not kind to yourself, then it's very challenging to truly be kind to others. And so, because otherwise, also, then you can be so giving to others that you sacrifice yourself, and that's not the intention. And that's where I think also money teaches us some pretty strong lessons. Money doesn't want you to sacrifice yourself. Money wants you to enjoy and experience yourself, because it is often through money um, that we get to experience many beautiful things in
Yeah.
life. And really the fine, just juicy parts of life often come through the ability to have money. And so when you're particularly hard on yourself, and many people who, like you were saying, like drug addiction also can be a lot of numbing, can be a lot of like sensitivity and not being kind to yourself. Pain often, it's hard to
Yeah.
be in a great space when you're in pain all the time, having just experienced that extremely.
Yep.
It is really hard to be in like different spaces. So again, just being that kindness to yourself and clearing. And then the other thing, oh gosh, so many good things to talk about, but another thing is just like clearing stuff. Like I love this whole idea of Marie Kondo and her KonMari method, which is just like releasing things. Like, you brought me joy. Thank you. I appreciate you. You're not bringing me joy anymore. I'm going to release you so that you can bring joy to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that really goes with like everything in life. Like people, things, old shoes, like whatever it is. I mean, as long as it's still bringing you joy, great. Keep it in your life. I love it, the difference in this method, because she's never saying like, oh, I didn't wear this for 3 years and now I got to give it up. There's some joy going on right there.
Yeah, I just thought they had to see for a sec. They're like running around me playing. They really like what you're saying, I guess.
I'm like, yeah, joy. So this idea of like, you don't have to give something up. It's not about, punishing yourself and saying, I haven't worn this piece of clothing for 4 years, therefore I must give it up. It's the question of, is this still bringing joy? Is it still sparking joy in my life? And if it is, great, keep it there. If not, thank it. I love how she always says you got to thank the thing and then release it. And so as you're thinking about areas of your life, particularly when it comes to money, you can also think about like, is this still bringing me joy? Am I clinging onto it because I have a feeling of lack? Like this old beaten up spatula that, barely even works anymore. Am I keeping a hold of it because I think I'll never be able to get another spatula and I won't be able to afford it? Or am I keeping it because it brings me joy because I remember all the pancakes I've made with it on Saturday mornings? Like that's a totally different energy. And so really finding the places in your life where you're like holding on to things because you think that you will never be able to replace them, as opposed to holding on to things because they enhance and bring joy. And I think that goes a little bit along with the feng shui, like when you're cleaning up your spaces, really remembering to keep that in the back of your mind of like, as I'm cleaning, like,
Mm,
is this place cluttered?
mm,
Why is this place cluttered?
yeah.
Right? Am I keeping too many things that aren't bringing me joy. Because often when things bring you joy and you really value something, you treat it with respect and love, and you're very careful with it. Whereas when you're just like, "Bleh, whatever, I don't care about
Yeah.
that thing,"
Yeah.
you get really messy. I hate paperwork. Like, paperwork drives me so crazy. And you can tell that I have resistance against paperwork because I always have so many piles of paper around me.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my God, like piles and piles. And so one of the things that Dee and I are doing right now as we're downscaling was trying to get rid of all the stuff we're not really using, letting go of stuff. We haven't done like a real purge in about 7 years. And believe me, there is so much stuff that we get to pass on and just let go of and say, this is no longer serving me. I'm grateful for when I had it, but it's not really serving us in our life now. And so just releasing it. And I think when you release stuff like that, again, it creates a lot of flow, and it doesn't even have to be on a big scale. Again, just like, oh, women, I'm speaking to you out there. Go into your bathroom closet and throw away your old makeup and skincare products and hair care products that are all expired and you shouldn't be
Yeah.
using them anyway. Get rid of them. Keeping them in the drawer, thinking one day I'm going to use this mascara, and this mascara is, 2, 3 years old. Just let it go. Let things come into your life. Like, if you really want to create beauty in your life, like, let go of all those, piles and piles of stuff we keep in our bathrooms. Like, women, I don't know what it is about us and our skincare and hair care products, but man, we can really do some hoarding.
Absolutely. No play. There's like this video on Instagram, and it's like of this girlfriend coming home, and she's showing like her boyfriend's side, and he's so messy. Like, he never cleans up after himself. He never puts the cap on the toothpaste. And then she's like, well, anyways, and as she's walking, you see like her side, and it's like completely covered in just products that, like, the vast majority of them you're probably never gonna get to use. And I was like, and it's beautiful though. I mean, I think the boys are the same thing when it comes to just things that we think are gonna like for me, like I had so many tools, like hundreds and hundreds of like tools or screws or like different things. I'm like, yeah, maybe one day like I'm gonna build a something that will require me to use these things that, like, I know like deep down I'll probably never need to use. And yeah, like, you have to exhale. I mean, I would even say, like, women, if you do love beautiful beauty products, that's not the problem. I would even say if you got rid of the old stuff, you're gonna get the new good stuff. Like, that might be blocking
Yeah.
that petty and that, like, that new like nail out, that new nail look that you're going for or whatever. It's like a lot of the times you have to what I found is when I get rid of the stuff that was old to me, I get given the stuff that I really want and I think is cool, or even cooler than the stuff that I thought I was gonna get. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's
It
always a
creates
direct
just like this
correlation.
whole flow that just is like amazing. And it happens every time. I mean, really, if you're listening to this right now, just go pick one shelf, pick one drawer, and go really purge through it and see like what is in here that I'm just hanging on to for the sake of hanging on to it because I have a lack or I feel like there's not going to be enough. Start small. Again, we're not saying you guys got to do this on a big scale. Just try to start with something small and test it out. Test it out for yourself. See if it works. Don't just listen to us. I mean, one of the things I was reading in the Yoga Sutras recently was like, don't just listen to us. Go test it out in your own life. Don't trust anything. Like,
Yes.
just test it out for yourself and see if there's truth to it. But I find, and then the people that I've worked with, definitely like these small little things can make a really huge impact in your life. So just as an exercise, like, go check it out, see what happens in your life and what sort of blessings you can call to yourself when you just release some of this stuff that you are hanging on to. Again, with the mindset of, I will not have enough, like there's not enough, and so I have to keep a hold of this.
Mm.
Like, the universe is not going to provide me with the resources to be able to replace it, so I feel like I have to cling on to it. I'm talking
Yeah.
to you, woolly socks and underwear.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, like those socks were legendary before I got a hole in them. Like, I feel that, and I think, like, I guess I'll say like the last thing, the last like new thing I would say would be, again, like, affirmations help. There's a good
Yeah,
book, I've mentioned it before. I'll probably mention it a bunch. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and it I would say the topic of the book is like the art of prayer, or the art of or the art of affirmation setting, or just sort of like how we can use more positive language, more definitive language in our own mental space to have, um, yeah, just to have a more like profound impact on our reality and our perception. And like, so one that I always use is like, I have everything that I need like right now. Like it's already here. Maybe I just gotta like, turn on the light or something and look under the couch. But like it's here somewhere. Like that clip is here somewhere, like,
Yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
beautiful.
There's it's always here. It's always presenting itself. Like another thing I like to say is like, prosperity is always presenting. And another thing I like to say is like you can just say directly like I'm wealthy, I'm financially free, or whatever it is, and step into that space emotionally. That's kind of the key. If you're ever doing an affirmation practice and testing it out, I always say like 5 to 15 minutes, aim for 12, but any of that time works for there where you're trying to just consistently think and whatever language works for you, whatever phrase works for you, but it's the feeling, it's that sensation of being like, I don't even have to look at the bank account. I got everything I need. If I want to go here, do that with this person, um, that's really what we mean. You don't need to be a trillionaire to do that, but there is literally an amount of money, we don't might not know the number is, but at any given point that can have you feel like that on a day-to-day basis. Like I need to
Yeah.
spend $100 today for whatever reason, like I have enough, right? And maybe tomorrow it might be 10,000, and then the next day after that it might be none. I also like to
I
add
feel like
in.
I feel
I'm
like it's
sorry.
kind of, sorry, Quentin, I feel like
Hmm.
this is the same practice. It's just doing it with your thoughts. So it's the same as like going to your drawer and clearing out all the stuff that's no longer sparking joy. You can do the same thing with your thoughts and beliefs. And that's where affirmations come in, because you're basically clearing out the negative and replacing it with the positive, that pratipakshabhavana that they talk about in the Yoga Sutras. So it's the same idea of like clear out that negative belief. You don't need it. It's not sparking joy. It's not serving you. So go replace it with something nice. The wonderful thing about beliefs is you don't need money to change beliefs. You
Yep.
don't need money.
Yep.
Like maybe you need money to go buy a new pair of socks, although those will probably be given to you today also. But beliefs, no, you do not need money to change your beliefs. All you need is to think of what that belief is, find the opposite, positive version, and then just keep repeating that to yourself. That is simple and it's free. That doesn't cost anything.
It really doesn't. And I'll say I I like to add in a fast day for money. I call it a thrift day.
Hmm.
Same way that you do with fasting for food. I would even say for the same reason, really, because money's addicting. All we've been talking about, it's money, it's loving, it's this, but it is like getting a
It
check,
can be
like
addictive.
that
It
can
can
shut down
be.
an argument right now. How many people out
Mm.
there have been had tense in their relationship, and then all of a sudden the paycheck drops, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
like maybe we don't have to beat each other's necks anymore, right? So yeah, just have a fast day where you realize very directly. It also gives you a chance to experiment with this miracle thing we've been talking about, or seeing like if it actually does come. And when you are doing that fast days, you might be like, I don't have a choice. Like I don't have any money. I can't, but you know what I'm saying? Like that intentional period of resisting the temptation to spend money. Because we didn't even get into shopping addiction and all that kind of stuff. But things that we do that
Well, and
irresponsibly spend
social
money.
media is always telling us we need
Yeah.
more. We don't have
Yeah.
enough. You need to
Yeah.
spend money. You need to spend money. So just choosing to be like, I'm just going to choose to have a fast day. I'm not going to spend money today.
I gotta spend
It's
money
really
today.
powerful, like as a consumer, just like a fast day with food. It's really powerful to be like, I'm not going to die because I didn't eat today.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm going to be
Yes.
fine because I didn't spend money today.
Yes. And I found that if I say to
I'm going to
God,
observe
quite,
your mind and see how your mind tries to trick you. Sorry. Because your
no, no,
mind
you're
will
so
be
right.
like, mine will be like, I got to pay that bill. That bill's due 2 days from now. If I don't pay it today, oh my God, my lights are going to be shut off.
Hmm.
Well, just like the physical fast, when you're fasting from food, when you fast from money, expect the mind to be a little crazy and tell you all the things you got to spend money on that day, or otherwise you're going to, your whole life's going to fall apart if you don't spend money.
Yes,
Sorry. Go
absolutely.
ahead.
No, no, that was absolutely beautiful. It's so true. And what I've just found, like, like, well, yeah, like to be completely honest, it's like if I say I don't want to pay, like, for whatever, like sometimes it's just given. Like, oh, it's almost like he's waiting for you to be like, oh, like, finally, like, I can just get it to you now. Like, you'd almost been blocking down the blessing just by trying to provide this so,
Yeah.
so tensely for yourself. And I couldn't tell you how many times that's happened in my life where it's just
Mm.
like, I can't afford that. I still want it in my life. I can't afford it. And we'll just see what happens today. And the next thing you know is like, oh yeah, come on, let's go. Oh, I'll pay for your food. Like, we just stuff like that. And so even on that thrift day, that doesn't mean you're living like a poor person. Like, you can still step into the hotel and be like, all right, I'm not supposed to spend money today. We'll see what happens. Or or like, and it does happen. People do pay for meals. People do stuff like that. And I would even say it would likely increase your probability of it happening to you if you did stuff like that to others. And that's kind of where it comes all full circle with the non-greed, with the generosity, with that biblical story and that story we were talking about earlier. And is like, there is a relationship between you and the universe. And this is kind of like, you know, you're getting funded, I guess you could say. Like, you're being kept alive for a reason by this force. And your mind plays a role with that. All these different things play a role with that. But ultimately, like we're saying, like, you can expand how much money you think you're supposed to make. You can change your breathing patterns. You can, like, do all these different things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, we're all already supported. Like, there already is a benevolent overseeing force that wants to bring us into full fruition. Okay, so I love this analogy because it really resonates with me. It's like, the time in your life where you're the most taken care of, where you didn't have to ask for anything, was when you were the most pure. Most of us, like our early childhood. Now, I know some of us orphaned. There's kind of there's all these different. I know we all come from crazy backgrounds. Some of us, but just like that. Like, what makes you want to take care of a baby? What makes you want to take care of a little kid? It's like just their joy, their bliss, the beauty that exudes off of them. And when you're acting in authenticity, when you're expressing your true craft, when you're like being kind in the moment, when you're doing those things on like an individual basis, on a small basis, on a day-to-day basis, like, that still same benevolent force, which might have been concentrated through your mother and father and maybe your uncles and the village around you, is still acting. It never stopped. Like, you're still a baby in the eyes of God. Like, God's a bajillion years old. Like, as far as this vessel is concerned, like, this is, even if you're 50, you still really haven't been here. It's really not that much of a lift for God to still support you and
Yeah.
you and all the other people around you. And that's really where I've landed at kind of now. You just, when you're exhaling and you're at the end of the exhale, there is a moment where you're like, okay, I need to inhale. Like, there is that moment of like, it's time. And just to ride that wave and realize that, hey, that's a part of the process. And it always gets a little bit tighter before it opens up again. Um, yeah, those are the main things I think I could probably talk about money, just from what I've experienced so far in my
I was
life.
going to say, I think that's such a beautiful way to wrap it up. Is just, yeah, bringing it back to the breath again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
forever and always. um,
When in
cool.
doubt, bring it back to the breath. Well, great conversation. Um, I would love to hear some of your thoughts, those of you who are listening, about money. Yeah, give us some comments and just give us your impressions too, and like, where do you sit with money and how it affects your life. So we'd always love to hear more from you.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for your time. I can't wait to chat with you again, Radha.
Yep.
Peace. 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 Peace.